bi-weekly community meeting. We're going to just keep this kind of short. There aren't a lot of updates, but we'll pass it over to Dustin to start off with.
Yeah, so not a whole lot going on with TaskWarrior right now. You know, minor pull requests to bump versions of things and stuff like that going on. There's a few in-progress things that folks are working on, so but I haven't seen much action on those. Some things around color settings and profiling performance with large databases. So we're kind of focused. There's some things going on around performance. I'll talk about another one of those in a minute. And we just got a pull request to change some header includes. So kind of hopefully making the compile process a little faster. And maybe there's some more work we can do there in terms of making TaskWarrior a little bit more consistent in how it uses C++ and how it uses headers and things like that, which would probably make it more approachable for folks who know some C++ and want to make change to the project. I think right now it can be a little overwhelming to figure out just how everything fits together because it's not especially clearly structured. I'm waiting for some final debugging to happen to figure out if we can ship the next version of TaskWarrior. That should have a major performance improvement, which is using read-only mode to access the database when no changes are required. And that will be specifically either for commands that don't ever modify anything, or for commands that might modify something but are run with the GC config set to off. And the kind of surprising thing for most users is that listing tasks modifies the database unless you disable GC. And that's because the list commands all by default will renumber your tasks. If you deleted or completed a task, it'll change the numbers for the other tasks, and then evolve right into the database. So typically, if you just run task list or task all or task next or something like that, those are all reports. Those all write to the database, or at least potentially think about writing to the database to renumber every time you run them. So we'll get a little bit of performance benefit out of other commands that really only read from the database and don't do that garbage collection automatically. And then if you're scripting with TaskWarrior and want to make reports run faster, adding that, you can just do rc.gc equals 0 on your command line and it'll disable that, and those should run faster. So that's coming in the next version of TaskWarrior, which will probably be 3.4.0, maybe 3.3.1. I need to think about that a little bit harder. But I want to sort out some other possible issues here where we're actually somehow opening the database in read-only mode, but still trying to write to it, and that causes errors. So debug that first and then ship that. And the last bit is there's a pull request open right now on TaskWarrior sync server to try and update the Docker Compose process there. And I don't know a whole lot about how Docker Compose works. So if folks are listening to this, or if either of you have more experience in Docker Compose and want to take a look at that pull request, that would be really useful to me just to get some more context there. I think the PR author, hopefully, obviously, knows what they're doing. So we could probably sort it out between the two of us. But more eyes makes shallower bugs, as someone famous once said. Yeah, so that's about all that's going on. Nothing major, no big projects kind of getting geared up here. I think stuff is relatively static for right now, but there's plenty of room. I'm happy to help people if they want to work on larger projects or even smaller projects in TaskWarrior, just not driving anything myself. So I think that's it for my update, unless you have any other questions.
No, I think that was terrific. Thank you very much. And passing it over to Thomas. What have you got for us this week?
Yeah, from my side, I think the big announcement, which I already did on the Discord channel, is that I've been working on a new TimeWarrior tutorial, especially so maybe in the history, there was one tutorial, but was one big behemoth of text HTML file there, and it somehow always bugged me who's actually reading all this, and it also had some very high level stuff intermingled with the basic commands. So it was quite a long time on my list to somehow chop it down into some more bite-sized chunks. And yeah, I'm happy to say I finally did it. I'm done with the beginner's tutorial. It's now I guess 6 or 7. I don't have that number right available, but smaller steps that should new beginners or new users of TimeWarrior give a more basic understanding how it works. It does not go much into detail. It's more some kind of user journey to just get to know the most basic commands, the first stuff, and yeah, get a feeling on how TimeWarrior works. And yeah, it's still not perfect. So, but I think it's a very good milestone here, and I would be happy if people like it, and especially if they can give feedback. And also because, as said, the old tutorial contains some advanced stuff like talking about holidays and exclusions and all the other stuff. It would be maybe interesting for experienced users. Yeah, what topic they really want to know more about, or maybe also the new users, what topic they really want to know about in detail more, because as said, the work is not done, so there's still a lot to document and maybe give some more user insights and just the technical stuff, just to refer to the reference and say, yeah, here's the command, just figure it out. Yeah, so that's more or less it.
Well, that sounds terrific. Sorry.
Yeah, on the topic of tutorials and documentation, there's a bug in the tw.org repository right now, number 104, from Felix Stoop, talking about third-party documentation becoming more actionable. And it's kind of expanded into trying to look at how to structure TaskWarrior documentation, and mentions a site called, the Greek word, diataxis, I think, which kind of divides documentation up into tutorials, how-to guides, explanation, and reference. And I saw a PyCon talk about this from the author of this site years ago, and it's a really nice way to think about documentation. So I see that there's a tutorial coming in there, and this kind of separates out nicely, like what belongs in a tutorial, what doesn't, in terms of what a user coming to that document looks for. So not going into detail makes a lot of sense, for example. But I wanted to call attention to that because this might be a place where someone else wants to start sort of a more substantial work on TaskWarrior. I think the way we structure the documentation, there's lots of good information there, but it can be a little hard to find. And this bug goes into some of the details of that and how it could be improved. But maybe thinking about this way of structuring documentation and bringing some minor technical tools to the problem, we could probably make TaskWarrior's documentation easier to use as well. So that'd be a lovely project for someone to pick up and work on, and I'd be happy to help with that. Not something I'm at the moment going to jump into and lead on my own, but something that's out there to work on.
Could you drop that link into the chat and I'll add it to the video?
Yeah, I can't add it to the Meet chat because that's on my iPad, but I'll put it in the developers channel or the general discussion channel.
Perfect. I can grab it from there.
I haven't just caught the name of this site you mentioned, but from what you told here, I think I know that, and I also heard about this way of structuring documentation. I don't know whether I've followed the rules there, but I think I read it and at least mostly agree or think it's a nice idea to use it. And maybe also saying here, I'm always happy when I find some pull requests of people trying to improve the documentation, even if it's just a small typo. It's somehow, I think maybe it's some hurdle for most people. So, there's a typo here, and what should I do? But me personally, I'm really happy over every typo that gets fixed, and even if it's just this pull request, if somebody takes the effort to say, hey, here's a comma that's missing, I've made the pull request, can you merge it? And so maybe some public announcement, if you find something like that, or think, hey, here I can improve a sentence there, here and there, even if it's just this little, go for that. So,
And I think that's looking at the history. Part of why the documentation for TaskWarrior is so good is a lot of folks have touched it up here and there, made
yeah.
Not world changing changes to it, but improved it bit by bit, and
Yeah.
that adds up over time. Yeah.
Well, that's terrific. Any last thoughts or comments?
Nope.
All right then. Well, thank you very much for your time and for your updates, guys. And see you again in 2 weeks, I expect.